Good evening, race fans. My name is Fitzy Fitzsimmons. On behalf of Team Goon Squad here tonight, joined the booth by Jacob Piscanon for round 17 of the Old Bastards Racing League here tonight at Nashville Superspeedway. I'm just going to pull up our race information in a second here. So we can speak about today's race. As I said before, join the booth by Jacob Piscanon and say hi.
Hey everybody, glad to have you here on this wonderful Sunday morning for another round of the Old Bastards Racing League Metro Ford Cup Series.
Yeah, 100%. On behalf, as always, though, presented by Team Goon Squad, pushing you the action at 1080p 60 frames a second here tonight, as we're just waiting for the beginning of qualifying to roll through in just a minute here at Nashville Superspeedway. Just take us a quick run through on what these drivers will be going through in qualifying and how crucial it is to get that track position.
Yes, Finley, it is absolutely 100% crucial. Drivers are going to be probably working the low side. This is a mile and a third concrete oval, shaped much like your D-shaped ovals you see a mile and a half. Some people claim it drives like a short track. I think it drives more like a mile and a half in how you have to arc the corners, but momentum is a big key to making fast lap times, and starting as close to the front will be important. It is very, very tough for these drivers to pass throughout this race, so they're going to be looking to put themselves as close to that pole position as they possibly can today.
Yeah, 100%. It's very, very difficult to overtake in the race. You have to wait for a mistake or maybe try and dive around the outside of turn 1 and 2, but it's not an easy feat to do. So track position and qualifying is absolutely crucial to bringing good results here tonight. As it looks like the prep session will be over in just a second here and begin the coverage of qualifying.
Yeah, these drivers are definitely going to have some strategy at their disposal with unlimited fuel or tire sets for today's race. So if they're in the back, they're probably going to be able to come in at any caution and grab a new set of tires, feel a little bit better about their grip levels of their car. But with no fast repairs, Finley, they're certainly going to have to watch how much they put those cars in a risky position, especially early on in the race if they want to be there at the end to try to contend for a win.
Yeah, they're going to have to be tiptoeing around because any damage, especially with how quick this track is down those straight lines, any kind of aero damage, any bits of metal poking out into the airflow, going to be slowing that car down loads and just hindering or just really not helping you. And with the fast repairs, you can't fix it. So if you get any damage, you're almost screwed. So yeah, definitely going to have to watch out for that one.
Certainly. And these drivers also kind of in a way need to treat these sort of like a GT3 car in a sense with the splitter and the aero diffuser on the back of the car that provides a little bit of a different platform than what they might be used to with these new current gen cup cars. So they're going to have to watch how much they aggressively dive it in for bottoming the corners or anything as well to make sure they keep that, because that will be key to maintaining those grip levels throughout the race as well.
Yeah. So just waiting for our drivers to come out. It doesn't look like they've rolled out a pit road yet on my end. I'm not quite sure if that's the case for you as well.
Now, I believe it looks like some drivers are going to be waiting. They're probably going to see if they can catch the track at an optimal time and avoid too hot of a track, get the best grip levels. Because we have one driver on track. Looks like that was Eddie Jones turning in the first lap times of qualifying today.
Yeah, I think it might have been an issue on my end because I can't quite see the drivers on track. Oh, I think I know why. So it looks like. Yeah, I think I know why.
While you're sorting that out, we've got three drivers that have turned time, so we'll get you a quick rundown. We've got the 14 of Eddie Jones sitting on the current provisional pole with a 30.81. John Hinchcliffe is currently sitting in second. And just as that, I say that Greg McDaniel's going to go jump him. Drivers are starting to turn in their times now, so we're starting to see a little bit of quicker laps. We've got Eddie Jones sitting on the pole at a 30.805, excuse me. Greg McDaniel sitting in second with a 30.840. John Hinchcliffe just jumps him on his second lap, going to a 30.819. Robert Crisco is currently fourth on the track. He actually just gets bumped by Mike Schrader as a few more times turn in. Oh, and Greg McDaniel and Mike Watts. We've got drivers now coming out, so I'll give everybody a minute to sort out, and we will grab that running order for you.
As we can see, we just have a quick provisional times running up on the board at the moment. Looks like Greg McDaniel's in your provisional pole position. The quickest lap for 30.75 here tonight. Also, Eddie Jones was looking quite quick in practice, I believe, in the 14. He did end up topping the practice session, but it looks like he's tumbling down the order now, back in 6th place, as Daryl manages to top off at the moment in that P1 spot in the 15 car, having a 30.66. Also matched by Dwayne Mcarthur there, only 1,000th of a second behind him with a 30.67. You can see on the live timing screen on the left, you can see they're pretty much identical in their lap time. So, yeah, I've seen before in these races, qualifying can get very, very tight, only within maybe 1 or 2 tenths of a second, especially on these ovals. There's not much braking zones in qualifying. You're pretty much on the throttle or just lifting throughout most of these corners. There's
Yeah,
now
as
the
you
whole
said,
place to lose our time.
with these short 2-lap runs, tire management is not of any essence. These drivers are pushing their cars as hard as they can, so they're just going to be on the throttle as quickly as they can. And with the way that Nashville Superspeedway races, they can easily get with just a very, very light brake drag into both turn 1 and turn 3. Quickly try to use the throttle to rotate the car around the center and then get back on it and carry as much momentum down the straightaways as possible.
Yeah, that is the aim of the game. You want as much speed coming out of turns 2 and 4. They're very, very big factors in determining what lap time you can set. Also in the race, you want to get a really good exit out of turn 4, so it's good to practice that, because if you want any chance of overtaking, it's really going to have to be down that main straightaway and into turn 1. So just watching more drivers knock off their lap times here tonight.
Yes, Daryl Weininger still able to hang on to that provisional pole at that 30.66, but you can see 17 drivers have turned in time so far, and really, Finley, second and a tenth and a half between first through 17th is a pretty tight field.
Yeah, very, very tight. A lot of these drivers very, very close on pace as well. Although they may have set slightly worse qualifying times than they may have been able to, that could be down to other factors, and they could still be very quick in the race. They just maybe wasn't quite able to hook up that lap as well as they wanted to. I'm looking at Eddie Jones in the 14 after topping practice. I'm sure he'll have something to say about it in the race, and maybe have to make his way up some positions. But for now, it looks like he'll be starting provisionally in that P6 spot if nothing else changes, as we're just waiting for the rest of the drivers now. We're halfway through this qualifying session. Approximately 4.5 minutes remain. That's 4.5 minutes if they haven't already to improve on their lap times or set one out there. It looks like we only have about 5 or so drivers who haven't set their lap time yet. There are a couple strong drivers there who haven't quite set their lap time yet, that we are looking forward to see what times they can on the board. However, it looks like it will be at the moment a Chevrolet top 3. With the 15, the 11 of Mcarthur, and the 30 of McDaniel, all in the Chevrolet body here tonight.
Yeah, we have a predominantly Chevrolet field with a decent mix of Fords, just a couple Toyota stragglers, but I wouldn't sleep on those Toyotas, as Steve the Mule Thompson has currently put his Toyota Camry in fourth, and we're waiting for Johnny Jackson, the number 109 Toyota Camry, to see if he's going to turn in a time before the end of this session.
Yeah, as we pretty much have now 3.5 minutes remain. I think most of the drivers have set both of their 2 lap times here tonight. We're just waiting for that time to tick down, and we'll go through our provisional order in just a minute here, once this qualifying finishes. However, I'm definitely quite excited for this race. It does go single file very, very quickly, but those first 2 laps, drivers want to fight really, really hard for that track position. They'll use up quite a lot of tyres, because they know as soon as they go single file, it's going to be so much more difficult to overtake on that first or second lap. It's really going to be their best opportunity to make up as many places as possible. So usually we do see a lot of pushing and a lot of action on the first few laps before it starts to die off. So we're definitely going to be in for quite a start. Also, a point to note as well, new to the service, the iRacing start zones, marked by the Geico branding on the wall and on the grass right in front. You can just see at the moment, just before the line. If you guys don't know what exactly that means, the iRacing start zones, like they are in real life, on all starts at the beginning of the race, once the first driver enters their car into the restart zone, the person with the flag will wave it at a random point, basically giving the driver on the inside and the outside an equal opportunity to get a good start. But on any restarts, as soon as that P1 driver manages to get into the start zone, it will be all on them, and they can call when the field starts, and if they don't start before the end of the restart zone, it will go green anyway. It looks like we're waiting for the last of our drivers now. Only a couple more drivers who haven't set a lap time yet. Johnny Jackson, our only remaining Toyota driver, not set a time in the 109 machine. However, it looks like our top 5 is pretty much locked out here tonight.
And as always, we appreciate all of the sponsors that have come on board to make this league possible. Without them, we certainly would not be able to do this. And we appreciate all the fans that are tuned in. Dwayne Mcarthur, after turning in his qualifying lap, has left a comment of showtime. We appreciate all the other fans that tune in. I know these drivers, a lot of them will have these streams pulled up while they're currently racing, as well as go back and review it afterwards. They love to see your support. So if you're in tuning, feel free to leave a message in the chat. Let us know who you're here supporting and what you would like to see tonight.
Yeah, we're always open to, yeah, we want to see who you broadcast or who you're cheering on here tonight. You want to give that extra kind of oomph to see if they can up their position in the results. However, it looks like we've got about 40 seconds left, so I'm pretty sure this is the order we're going to see to begin today's race at Nashville Superspeedway.
Again, we see that field tightening up now, just 0.8 of a second separating your provisional pole for your last driver, Clark, that has turned in his time. So very, very tight field. We could literally see anybody move at any time. As again, Finley said, restarts are going to be the most crucial to trying to gain any positions on the track. So you're going to see drivers approaching things furiously. I would not be surprised to see 3 wide moments at any time, but we're going to get you through the starting grid.
So, starting on pole here tonight, Daryl Willinger starting in P1, followed by Dwayne Mcarthur P2, Greg McDowell, excuse me, in his Eddie Machine rolling off in P3, Steve Thompson rolling off in 4th, Michael Watts in 5th, Eddie Jones in 6th, Brian Lynch starting 7th, John Hinchcliffe starting 8th, followed by Larry Corey starting in P9, Tom Ogle P10, Al Turner starting in P11, followed by Joey Bushme starting in P12.
Going back through the field, we've got starting off on the inside of road. Number 7 is Lee Wardzel in the 99 machine. Outside of him in 14th is going to be the 4 machine of Mike Schrader. Back a row in the inside of row number 8, Brian Lindsay in the 24 car. Outside of him is going to be Robert Garisco in the 28. Jonathan Green's going to be rolling off 17th and 37. Dan Hill in the 10 machine is going to be rolling off 18th. Chris Clark today finds himself starting 19th in the 91 machine, and Lloyd Moore out of New England in the 26 machine is going to be starting in 20th. Got John Hastings in the 32 is going to be starting off in 21st. Got a fill spot there, and then back in our 12th row is going to be Michael Dow in the 60 and Johnny Jackson. They're going to be in the inside and outside of row number 12 today.
And just rolling off the back of the grid, we have Joe Nelson in P25 and the 106 Diamondback Motorsport machine. However, though, there's a grid here tonight, so we're just going to pull up our iRacing live timing to begin today's race at Nashville Superspeedway as we wait for the cars to roll out of pit road to begin the one and only pace lap before we go green here tonight, following that iRacing official pace car.
Drivers are all making their final preparations inside their cockpit as they make their way on the pit road to be ready to roll off. Just double checking their fuel calculations, their pit strategy plans that they may have with any of their fellow team members, sizing up what's going to happen if they do get a caution at any point, and just making their final mental preparations for how they want to drive these cars, any adjustments they may have wanted to make after finishing practice and qualifying. Looks like the field's starting to roll out on the track, so we'll give them a few moments to get themselves sorted out, and we should be under green momentarily soon here today.
Yeah, very, very shortly, as the last of our drivers are rolling out of pit road here tonight. The number 15 of Daryl Willinger will be controlling the restart of number 15. He'll be on the inside, and on the outside line we have Dwayne Mcarthur. Obviously, as I mentioned before with the iRacing start zones, it will give an equal opportunity for the guys on the inside and the outside to get a good start, as the flag will be waved at a random point, which kind of gives people on the outside another chance really to overtake, because otherwise who is off the leader? The leader could just pick a point, although like with some leagues they make the rule where you have to go on green, especially in official races and not in all leagues. You could just jump, as long as the pace car had gone down pit road, you could choose the point which you start. However, though, with these iRacing start zones, it does, I know I've said this about 3 times, but it does just give an extra little hope for the guys on the outside, especially in Nashville. Being kind of a single lane track, it's one of the only opportunities they'll get as the pace car rolls down pit road now as we just wait. We're into the restart zone. And the green flag flies here at Nashville Speedway. It looks like 15 of Dwayne Mcarthur gets a good start. Looks like the 11 of Dwayne Mcarthur didn't get as of a good start on the outside line and falls back just a little bit. However, he does gain a little bit of groundsing maybe as they go too wide now with Greg McDaniel. McDaniel looks like we'll have a run, but looks like Dwayne Mcarthur in the best prop show machine will get the draft down the back straight away.
As they go side by side, Darrell Weininger loving this start as he's able to check out from the field. He quickly creates a half-second gap as McDaniel and McArthur are running side by side. Looks like we're looking at the 67 of Steve Thompson. He's currently in the 4th spot, trying to break the freeze. We've got a couple 2 wide battles behind him for 5th and 6th on the track. Front 4th will be single filed out. You see a couple 2 wide battles back there. Eddie Jones is in one of those. He is in the 14 Terex Green Chevy Camaro out there just in front of the 50 of John Hinchcliffe and the 83 of Tom Ogle. Ogle works to the inside of Hinchcliffe as they come back off of turn number 4. See who can get the advantage as they drag race down the front straightaway back to turn number 1. Those two are going to continue to go side by side. Ogle taking the inside line, Hinchcliffe taking that outside as they work their way through the middle of 1 and 2.
As it looks like if Ogle is able to pull this move off, he will actually move himself into P7, which will be up 3 spots from where he started, especially in Nashville Speedway. He was maybe not 100% happy with the qualifying time and is now making up the difference, making up those all-important track positions as early on as he can before he starts to settle for the Fura.
Yeah, looks like he might have been stalled out a little bit, sitting behind the 14 of Eddie Jones, but we're going to go back to a battle for 2nd and 3rd as Dwayne Mcarthur and the 11 Bass Pro Shops machine looking there, but we still continue this 2 wide battle. Looks like Tom Ogle was able to clear himself of Hinchcliffe. Now he sets his sights working on the inside of Eddie Jones. See Eddie Jones in that 14 Terex Cranes Camaro. And he's quickly falling back as Hinchcliffe's almost looking to attack him. Now Hinchcliffe works to the inside as they're going to cross the start-finish line. Complete lap number 4 here. So, fortunately, it looks like a little bit of an issue for Eddie Jones as he's fallen back a couple spots. Started 6th today, back to 8th currently as Hinchcliffe works to his inside. We'll see if that continues to be a common theme for him or if he can kind of get himself righted now that he's found a little bit of a gap ahead of the number 9 of Brian Lynch. But looks like Tom Ogle's now quickly working to the inside again. He's got Hinchcliffe on his outside, but he quickly works to the inside of the 84 Michael Watts. A little bit of a power move there on the Lowe's for Pros machine of Watts. Just dives it down to the bottom, quickly clears him going into turn number 1. I think Watts made the right move there to try to just slide it behind him and not run the risk of falling back to Eddie Jones as well, Finley, there as they work their way back onto the backstretch.
Yeah, pointed out as well, Ogle is now in 5th place. Because he started 10th, that means he's gone up 5 spots from where he started here tonight. He's our current highest climber in the 83 Ford Mustang machine, as it looks like he's on an absolute roll.
Yes, quickly making it, trying to see if he could set the sights on the 67 of Steve Thompson, see if he can try to get some draft off of him as they work their way back out of turn number 2. Draft does play a slight bit of a factor, although at times it can be very difficult to poke a hole in the air created by the car in front of you and get by him, but he's quickly making that bottom work. He's been diving to the bottom both turn number 1 and turn number 3 every lap, so quickly clears by 67 of Thompson, move him all the way up to 4th place now.
Yeah, you just have a little bit of a gap in front of him to Greg McDaniel. However, though, our current leader, Darrell Weininger, able to already stretch out a 1.6 second gap. He's definitely taken advantage of maybe some of the drivers battling behind, and he's been able to edge that gap out by a significant amount already. This is giving him a very easy cushion now to maybe save a bit of extra fuel or a bit of extra tyres or only help him out longer in the stint. It's the perfect position that he wants.
Yeah, I think he's knows he has complete control of this race, and he can just set it at whatever pace he would like to run. He works his way back through the center of 1 and 2. And you see, got another battle again. Ogle just continuing to pick drivers up and set them down. He made quick work of that gap to Greg McDaniel. Clears him as they go back to the middle of the back stretch. Working back into turn number 3. We'll see if he continues to dive to the bottom. Looks like he does. McDaniel's going to follow him down there two have been running some of the lower lines, as you can see, almost up against that edge of the apron and the racing surface. Drivers do want to be careful not to clip too much of that apron with it, as the transition between the banking and the flatter apron surface can upset the car and send it into a four-wheel drift, which sometimes in these current gen cup cars can be a bit difficult to recover from, Finley. It's almost kind of like you're on a razor thin edge of ice.
Yeah, 100%. You want to get as close as you can because it helps you with the time. However, though, you know, it's how much risk you want to balance, how close do you want to get, how much you want to risk catching that apron, and then just losing that back end that just careens you, especially with no fast repairs here tonight, because everyone is running that low line. It's literally just the freight train that's going to be running into you, and definitely if you spin on that low line, you're just going to get smashed to pieces. Just really, like, yeah, you really don't want that. However, though, it looks like Tomogl is only able to take a 10th out of Dwayne Mcarthur out ahead, so it looks like he's found his spot at the moment in P3. He is quicker, but will have to slowly reel in that gap. For now, it's looking like he will stay around about the same.
Yeah, we've got somebody in the chat giving a little bit of insight to maybe what the number 14 of Eddie Jones is doing. Making a comment about him saving tires, and that's part of his reason for sliding back through the field. I think that is definitely a viable strategy. We'll see if he can execute that, especially if we are able to stay green for the first fuel stint. I mean, that definitely could work, but he's got to be careful. He doesn't want to lose too many spots because, as we've mentioned, back position is very important, and it can be very difficult to pass even if you do have better tires later on in the run than somebody. So it's like we're on board. You see him working to the inside of John Hinchcliffe. Hinchcliffe just off his right front corner there as they work their way back into turn number 1. I would say this is a bit of a disadvantage to be at times. That tighter entry into the corners can definitely pinch some momentum, but Eddie Jones makes quick work of it, able to clear John Hinchcliffe, so put himself back into 7th place as it looks like he's starting to climb a little bit again now as we've sorted out the early stages of this race.
Yeah, now we've kind of sorted out the earlier stages where drivers are fighting hammer and tong. It looks like we're going slightly more single file here. Looks like just behind though, Downhill and John Hinchcliffe are going too wide, and also Al Turner and Brian Lynch behind. But it looks like they're the only drivers remaining or still fighting side by side. The rest of the drivers know they're going to be starting burning up the tyres a little bit too much. And yeah, they definitely want to go single file before they start using up too much, because it's definitely going to hurt them longer on in the stint, because I mean their tyres will drop off quicker. And especially with the tyre drop-off being so great here tonight, it's definitely going to hurt you a lot when they start to hit that point.
Yeah, I think the other thing these drivers are recognizing a little bit differently though is as soon as they see somebody get shuffled out of that inside line, they kind of smell some blood on the water, and they see that as an easy opportunity to pick up a quick spot, so they try to dive in and take advantage of that while it's there. But looking at Tomogl again, he's cut that gap down to Mcarthur. He's got that down to just over half a second, so we'll see if he continues to create that hard charge, or if that ends up hurting him later on in the run if we do stay green, as he's making that Ford Mustang White Claw machine work hard early on in this race.
Yeah, it just made me think maybe he's using up too much tyres, or maybe he's just really good, and maybe he can go that fast and still save all the tyres he needs. But it looks like for now, yeah, I'm not quite sure. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out, but I think he may be using slightly more tyres than drives around him. That should only explain why he's up 7 spots, and just on such a pace advantage, really, to the guys around him. Half a second it is to Dwayne Mcarthur now, and also that gap to Darren in front. Dwayne Mcarthur's been able to close that gap now to 1.5 seconds, so it's not as big as it was before now. He doesn't have as much control. Maybe the 15 has chosen to just hang back a little bit and save those tyres and just manage that gap and not let it go below a second. We'll have to wait and see how that one plays out. However, it looks like Ogle is staying around about that 5/10 window. As I say that, no, he's close within 3/10 now, I believe, of the number 11. So he's coming now. He's getting the suck now because he's close enough. Although it isn't as powerful it is at tracks, let's say Talladega or Daytona, it can definitely play you like maybe a 10th or 2 down the straight. He's now getting ever closer to the rear bumper of the number 11.
Yeah, you can see from those shots on the walls, 3 distinct groups that have really formed, Finley. You've got Leininger, who's pulled off on his own. We've got a good group between McArthur, Ogle, and McDaniel. They've kind of created their own little group for 2nd through 4th, and the rest of the field really is all pretty close to each other, all the way from 5th for Steve Thompson, all the way back to Chris Clark. Also got to mention from John Hastings, he's letting us know that this is the third time that the OBRL series has run at Nashville this week. The other two races, shockingly, went caution-free, which doesn't surprise me too much, but that lends itself to that tire management. So I think you're going to see that theme continue to manifest itself as we go throughout this race today, Finley.
Yeah, as you can just see Brian Lindsay there, trying the inside line. And I believe, who was that? That was John Hinchcliffe in the number 50 machine. She's getting shuffled back a little bit now. Slightly more to the rear end of the grid. It looks like he hasn't had the best of starts for sure.
No, he's fallen back 7 spots as we gone. But again, he could be one of those trying to tire save, maybe going a little bit more as we're looking at the number 30 machine there. That was Greg McDaniel in the Kimball.net machine. Still leading that group is the 11 of Dwayne Mcarthur. You can see those two have pulled just a little bit from Greg McDaniel, but it's still a pretty defined group of 3, as I mentioned, for that 2nd through 4th place on track. Ogle continuing to set down the laps. Last time by, though, McArthur and Ogle running identical lap times. So we'll see if those two continue to match each other's pace, or if somebody makes that first mistake and falters and gives the advantage to the other driver. They work their way back into turn number 3 here at Nashville Superspeedway.
Yeah, it looks like though Tom Ogle has maybe tried to settle in a little bit. It looks like Greg McDaniel has been able to close back up to Tom Ogle there in the 83 machine. But it looks like Ogle, I don't know if this is tyre wear starting to settle in, or maybe he realises he needs to start saving just a little bit. Because he knows the gap ahead to Daryl in front to our leader at the moment is going down, so you can just sit behind McArthur, save those tyres, and maybe have another shot at, I don't know, or maybe you're just going to try and just wait for something to happen. I think he's had enough of trying to fight through the field now. He's up 7 spots from where he started. Surely that's enough.
Yeah, I think he may recognize early on that he's made some good progress, may want to kind of get back into tire saving a little bit, and then see if he can time a pit stop, maybe play undercut, maybe hit a lap or 2 sooner than his competitors around him, take advantage of those fresh tires at that point, to see, as the last time by, all our drivers in the front were in the mid 32 seconds, most of them posting their fast laps in the low 31s, so we're already starting to see about 1 second to 1.25 seconds of fall off, and we're only 22 laps into this event so far, with fuel expected to go anywhere between 62 and 68 laps. Those drivers may elect to run this as a 2-stop strategy, splitting it into equal segments of 50 laps, but only coming halfway through that, Finley. Could expect to see some tire fall off happen later on, but certainly drivers could try to gain an advantage by pitting a lap or 2 sooner than their competitors.
Yeah, last time by, Dwayne McArthur though went the rate nearly 4 tenths quicker than Daryl Winninger in the 15 machine in front, so I think maybe our leader has maybe burned up just a little bit too much tyres to begin with, trying to get that gap, and now it's starting to close up big time. 5 tenths to gap now.
And we're quickly going to see a battle on our hands for the front 4 spots, as this pack of 3 of McArthur, Ogle, McDaniel are quickly closing up as they work their way back onto the back stretch here at National Superspeedway. You can see we've started to have a little more separation through the field. There are a couple more groups are starting to define themselves, so this is kind of what happens, like we talked about, as the runs start to go a little bit longer. Drivers are certainly finding their way, and it looks like, as we say that, McArthur dives to the bottom of the front stretch, trying to work his way to the inside of McArthur, take away the lead for the first time. Like Weininger is going to get shuffled to the outside. We'll see if he can battle back as they work their way through the middle of 1 and 2. Looks like he's going to choose to slot behind McArthur, so first time McArthur takes over the lead here on lap number 26. And we're going to see if Ogle and McDaniel are going to smell some blood in the water, try to get by Weininger, or if they're going to look to just sit behind him, cruise, and maybe save a little bit of tire and keep this group of 4 tightly close packed as they work their way across the start-finish line.
Yeah, I definitely think Ogle does want to get past. As you see that, he dived down to the inside. I think Winninger, because he may have just used up a little bit too much tyres, he's just going to be a bit of a roadblock. The 3rd and 4th to both make their way down the inside of Winninger. So literally in 2 laps he's gone all the way from 1st all the way down to 4th, getting shuffled down the order here tonight. But I think maybe they just saw Dwayne McArthur in front and didn't want to lose touch of him, because he's thinking, I've got a shot of winning this race, I don't want him to ruin it for me. So he gets right past him, although the gap is now around about 5 seconds to Dwayne McArthur. We know Tom Ogle does have speed, maybe that's because he was burning up his tyres, we'll have to wait and see. We are starting to get to the midpoint of, just past the midpoint of the stint. A point to note, as we've heard word from the drivers, we do have 62 to 67 laps, I believe, of fuel here tonight at Nashville Superspeedway, which would exceed slightly the two-stop strategy. So maybe if there were some cautions, which we haven't had, as mentioned before by someone in the stream, they're the first two races of the three, the Xfinity and the Truck Series, both run in the Old Bastards Racing League here. Both went green flag all the way. So maybe that may not be a factor, but if there is cautions, it can possibly be a one-stop. But I definitely think tyres will be the limiting factor instead of fuel here tonight.
Certainly, I agree with that. As MacArthur, gap's kind of stabilized, is sitting right around 4.5 tenths between Dwayne McArthur and Tom Ogle. You see McDaniel here in the Sterling Worldwide Kinroll.net Chevy Camaro. He's quickly trying to tighten up to the back of Tom Ogle. I think he recognizes that if those two can work together, they may, as a pair, be a little bit stronger than MacArthur and may both be able to improve their spots. And then once he's gotten by MacArthur, he may be able to set himself a sights on the lead to get by Tom Ogle. But he's also kind of content to just ride here. He's in a good spot in third place. Again, still maintain that tire saving and see what they can get out as we're quickly working at lap 30 of 150. Still very, very early on in the event, but these laps are clicking off ferociously fast as we have not had any cautions to this point if you're just tuning in. Drivers are working their way back into turn number 1. We've got that group of 4 broken away. Kind of a group of 5, a little bit of a split there. And then you see some more separations. You work your way back into the field.
Yeah, definitely, as you said before, a lot of packs starting to form. We kind of have that front four which are really close together. Then we kind of have, I believe, if I have a look, looks like that's 5th through 9th there. Headed by Steve Mule Thompson. They've just kind of spread out just a little bit. They are a pack and they have managed to spread out from the rear, but it looks like they're just all kind of around about 3 to 4 tenths away from each other. But it looks like these front four are definitely working very... Sorry, these front four are definitely working very well together. And they're not trying to make money mules now. So maybe they think they might have the speed to pass them. But they're not going to use that speed just now. They're going to save some tyres, which is only just going to help them. They're not going to lose any time by doing it. So they may as well just sit in behind, lift a little bit more into the corners, save some more fuel, which means they'll have to fill up less during the pit stops. And maybe shave 5 tenths to a second off that pit time.
Talked about, it's really tough to pass. Last time by the top 10 or top 12 drivers, only separated by just about 2 tenths, 10.5 to 2 tenths. So even if they wanted to do anything, it is very tough for drivers to make too much of a move without a mistake from a driver around them. So I think when everybody recognizes how tough it is to pass, like you said, they're going to start focusing on that pit strategy, trying to save the tires and the fuel, recognizing that that is going to be the best opportunity to pick up a significant amount of spots here in the event tonight. But looks like we also see Greg McDaniel maybe trying to force the issue a little bit. Gap has closed up to the 11 of MacArthur. We see about equal separation between your front 4 drivers. All of them separated right around 2 to 3 tenths there. And I think honestly you see Steve Thompson closing up a little bit as well. He was... last time by falls off a little bit, but previous to that, he was maintaining about a half a tenth to a tenth advantage over the drivers in the front. So see if he continues to do that or if he starts to back it off a little bit as the drivers work their way back down the backstretch into turn number 3.
Yeah, I definitely think it's not down and out for the drivers that aren't in the front pack here tonight, because it looks like they have been saving their tyres just a little bit more. As it looks like Eddie Jones, after having that terrible start, going down 4 spots from where he started, is now all the way back up into 6th place, right behind our second pack leader, Steve Mule Thompson. So it looks like in the 14 he's been able to save very well and is now making his way back up the field.
Yeah, certainly a second win from Tom Ogle. We're going to go back at the 14 of Eddie Jones. We, received that tip earlier on that he was saving tires, and it looks like that's starting to come to fruition as he's able to recover. Got himself back into 6th where he qualified. Last time by ran an identical lap time to Steve Thompson. We'll see as they cross the start-finish line again, this time where they stack up. A little bit of a drop off for Jones compared to Thompson, but still nearly identical lap times. So I think you're seeing him start to execute that plan, maybe making us look a little bit foolish early on, but certainly probably had a pre-planned strategy coming into this and executing that to perfection. I think before long, you may see him try to insert his name into the top 5 here.
Yeah. Which is just go back to our leaders now. As you just said before, this top 4 are now just settling in, trying to make sure they make no mistakes, saving as much tyres and fuel as they reasonably can without losing too much time. As it looks like the 5th... Ooh. I think our gap is starting to get a little bit closer. Actually, no, it stayed around about the same. 1.7 seconds to 67. 5th place now to our front pack. So they're kind of just chilling now at the moment, not really doing too much. This is just the point where you got to settle in, make sure you make no mistakes, because, you know, we don't see as much action at this point, and it's very, very important to manage those tyres, because really that's going to determine what position you finish at the moment, is really how well you save those tyres in here, and the middle stint as well. It's very, very easy, especially if you run a different pit stop strategy to the drivers around you, maybe picking a lap earlier or later. You'll end up kind of in no man's land for a little bit, and in that no man's land it's very, very easy to push the car too much because you have no one to gauge off around you. When you're in these packs, you can kind of gauge your pace off the driver in front of you or behind you to see how quick you're going and how well you're saving those tyres to the drivers around you. But when you're on your own, on drivers on alternate strategies, it's very, very difficult to gauge that. I've done it in league racing myself, where I push too much on that middle stint because I have no one really around me after running the alternate strat, and it's really hurt me in that last stint because I just wasn't able to stretch the tyres in the middle stint as long as I could have done.
I think too, the other thing we want to cue the fans on, Finley, is we have mentioned tire saving over and over again. How exactly do these drivers save tires in these current Gen Cup cars? So one of the ways that you can do this is by taking a wider arc. Basically, instead of following the bottom all the way around and making it tighter, you start close to that outside wall and then really kind of slope it down towards that yellow line into the corners. By doing that, you're putting a little less stress on the right side of the car to force the car down there. That allows you to save some as well. The other way that drivers will do this is they will start braking a little bit sooner into the corners, allowing them to not transfer as much weight as quickly, which will reduce the stress on the right front, as well as not picking up the throttle quite as early or quite as hard as they would if they were trying to push a little bit faster of a pace. All those things combined will allow them to just basically reduce the wear and the amount of stress that those right-sized tires are seeing. That'll allow them to have a little bit of more rubber on it as they get toward the back end of their stint. More rubber equals more grip equals faster lap times.
Yeah. It's just really all about just not leaning on that right front as much as possible. As for many ovals, that front right tyre is really the limiting factor at any point. It's just really about maybe just shifting the weight to the other tyres a little bit more, and just not leaning on that tyre as much. But going back to the race, it looks like our front two have been able to stretch a little bit of our gap. So 9/10 it is to the front two, to McDaniel in third now.
Yeah, you see those two have looked to push the pace a little bit faster the last time by. They were running about a half a tenth to 3/4 of a tenth faster than McDaniel and Weininger. So these two are seeing an opportunity maybe to try to separate themselves a little bit, maybe set themselves up for the start of their pit window. Hopefully have a little bit of an advantage so that they execute their strategy to perfection. It'll allow them to open up that gap even more on McDaniel and Weininger. Everybody's just kind of planning right now. They know they're starting to get into certain checkpoints and stages for this race. They just want to try to execute everything as clean as possible, because this is going to go green the whole way. Any slip up at any point in these stints can certainly spell disaster, losing a couple spots, or if you're in the case of Dwayne Mcarthur, you may lose the lead and not be able to get it back.
Yeah, because it's very easy, as you said, to make... Well, yeah, it's just very hard to make those positions back. It's very, very hard to overtake here in Nashville Superspeedway. Track position is very, very important. So maybe you've got to be thinking about kind of coming to the pit stop period now. Is the driver behind me going to try and undercut me? Is he going to try and pit that lap earlier? And with those fresher tyres, just push that much quicker? And are you going to try and cover that off and pit early yourself? Or are you just going to try and stretch it as long as possible? As you can just hear now, the drivers revving down their engines loads as they're lifting more and more through these corners to save their tyres. Because they have less and less grip as the stint goes on. Now you've really got to be off that throttle to kind of stay on the low line.
I think The other thing these drivers are going to be able to have at their advantage that was not able to be used in past generations of these Cup cars, these 5-gear sequential transmissions, Finley, these drivers, if they were running right on the edge of a gear, as the tire wear falls off and the lap times come off, they can actually opt to downshift in the center of the corner as well. That can help rotate the car with that increase in RPMs, which saves some stress on the brake front, as well as allows them to get a little bit of a better acceleration off the corner. So if they do want to try to overtake a competitor, they may be able to use that as a bit of an advantage. As you see, Oval looks like he might have taken a little bit of a higher entry. I think that was more of an overshoot of the corners. You didn't really see him dive it down to the yellow line to try to get to the inside of the car, though. I think he's going to focus on running his line, his marks. I think he knows he has a decent control on this field. He just needs to be worried about himself executing it. Looks like we've got drivers starting to pit in as Steve Neal pulls off turn number 4 and enters onto the pit road. So he'll be the first one to initiate these green flag starts here on lap number 48.
Yeah, he'll be the first one to take the plunge down into pit road. Start. Excuse me. Pitting on the lap 48 or 150, so it looks like he will be going for that two-stop strategy, pitting 1/3 into the race here tonight. His next laps will be projected around about lap 100. For now, if you guys have just checked in, you can see as it looks like Dwayne Mcarthur is also going to go down pit road in 11, and the next two behind him, Winninger and McDaniel.
Yeah, this pit strategy is pretty much going to be a monkey see, monkey do. Once the front drivers start to come in, you're going to see a lot of people start coming in, as it's going to be hard to stay out for multiple laps and not lose a significant time advantage. So drivers are all starting to pull in. We see some drivers completing their services they were in on the lap before. Other drivers working their way into their boxes now. So you're going to see a bit of a change in the front as drivers are starting to peel off onto the pit surface. It's like Tom Ogle pits himself out of the lead coming into the pit road. Other thing, too, drivers got to be cautious of, Finley. They're going to try to maximize their time onto pit road and off the pit road, getting as fast as they can to that yellow cone, signaling the start of the pit road speed, as well as trying to get off of pit road as quickly as possible. So you may see some drivers potentially have an issue, maybe locking up brakes, maybe spinning the car up. We're watching that they don't get a black flag for speeding on pit road as well.
Yeah, it's very, very easy to, especially with these tyres, drivers may have practiced to go down pit road when they have fresh tyres in practice rather than the qualifying runs, and that doesn't take into factor how worn these tyres will be. Especially that front right, the less grip it will have, the less braking performance it will have, and it's so easy to lock up that right front or both your front tyres going to pit road, and when they lock up you can't slow down as quickly, and that will lead to possibly overspeeding a pit road, getting that aforementioned black flag. It looks like Brian Lynch is the only man to not go down pit road at the moment, as he's staying out even longer on that 51 or 50 in the huge Steam number 9 machine. It looks like he's going to stretch this stint as long as he can, because he knows the longer he can extend this stint, the more, or the less worn his tyres are going to be throughout the whole of the next one and the one after, which is going to help him. But how long does he stay out? Because he knows, you can just see everyone passing him now, getting his lap back from our leader. You can just see how quickly how quick the drivers on the fresh tyres are. If he doesn't pit soon, he's going to be so far behind the pack, he's not going to be able to catch back up again within reasonable time.
I think you may see him come in soon, Billy. I think the one thing he was looking at was hoping that as he was still out there, he had most of the field trapped a lap or more down. I think he might have been hoping for a caution flag to come out, which would have allowed him to pit and not lose as many spots as he will now coming in under green flag conditions. We did have Joe Nelson with a little bit of an issue crashing, but he was able to keep it out of the racing surface.
Yeah, we're just seeing a
There's
quick
a
replay on that.
replay. I think that might have been what I was talking about. Drivers trying to maximize that speed out of pit road. Cold tires, maybe getting on the throttle a bit too hard. Breaking those tires free, it is certainly easy to do. Watch here as he works his way back out onto the apron.
As he stops, and then I think he registered on the software as crashed. I think it's just because he went just a little bit slower there on pit exit. I'm not as...
Yeah, looks like if there's going to be an issue, this might be the only spot, but I don't think anything actually happened. So he may have his back on pit road. That's another round of service, which you can see as pit stops to cycle through. Front four group back together, you can actually see Greg McDaniel was able to jump Tom Ogle. So Greg McDaniel is your second place runner now. Tom Ogle in the 83 White Claw Ford Mustang running in third. Darrell Weininger in that 15 Flow Racing Chevy Camaro, not very far behind. We've seen that front four tighten up significantly compared to what it was prior to the round of pit stops. But you can also see Steve Thompson and Eddie Jones are lurking just off the back of this group. They're only 4/10 off the back of Weininger, so we could quickly have a 6-car battle at the front, Finley, before too long.
Yeah, we could definitely, as it looks like Ogle's down the inside of McDaniel for second place here. On the inside line, he gets the move done here.
Yeah, that was a power move that I think was really serviced by those fresh tires. Those fresh tires give you a load of confidence as the driver in the grip level that your car has. You feel like you can just carve any line out of the track. You can point the car anywhere. It'll stick. It'll listen to every command that you have. But certainly, gotta watch how many of these we do, because every time you make one of those aggressive moves like that, you're going to be shaving some of that precious rubber off of that right side front tire. That will limit you what you can do later on in the run. We'll see how these drivers can execute over this run. I'm sure they've already looked at their tire data, analyzed it, seen if they can make any driving adjustments, and are going to try to execute those over the next stint. I'm curious to see if they stick to that even 50-lap run, or if that stint comes, that next pit stop comes at a little bit of a different time, maybe allowing them to have a few less laps on their tires to set up the final run to the checkered flag today.
Yeah, as it looks like though, 5th and 6th are broken from their pack and able to catch back up to the lead pack. So now first through 6th are in a little bit of a train here, just kind of following the person in front of them. It's a little bit like follow the leader here tonight, Nashville Superspeedway on lap 57. As we can see, Greg McDaniel getting very close to Ogle in the 83 there. I don't think he quite wants to get past just now, because he knows he doesn't want to stick out and go offline and burn up a little bit too much tyres. Although we can see Ogle's all over the bumper 11. I think he wants blood. As you can see, he ducks down to the inside line into turn 1.
Yeah, I think he's seeing the power of that clean air, and being the leader, you almost kind of have control of the race. So I think he wants to try to take that from Dwayne Mcarthur if he can. See if he can try to execute a pass as they go back into turn number 3. They're going to go side by side. Could we outside on turn 4 has definitely been a bit tighter to run. You can see McArthur kind of falls back. He's about half a car length back of Tom Ogle. So move Tom Ogle to the front for the first time tonight. This will be our 3rd leader, only our 2nd lead change, not counting what we had in the pit stops. So we'll see how long Tom Ogle can make this hold, or if McArthur's going to try to put a tough fight. It looks like he's going to try to cross back over as they work their way down into turn number 3.
It looks like Ogle on the outside line was just about able to close it off. Didn't give much space for McArthur to get through, and McArthur backs back out of it. Ogle remains your leader here tonight as he gets the lap-led points now. He has crossed the line in first place, which means he will get extra points in the championship here today. As it looks like Michael Watts in the 84 machine in 7th place is tagged onto this lead pack now. So 7 places in just a massive train here for P1. So it looks like McArthur's going to have another look down turn 3. He's more alongside this time, but Ogle waits a little bit longer to lift off and stays ahead.
Yeah, I think drivers recognizing how hard it is to make up ground. That's why Michael Watts and Eddie Jones put such an effort to try to tag to the back of this. And granted, they are a little over a second and a half back, but they are certainly within striking distance at any point, can execute good strategy to jump spots, as well as if any drivers in front of them make a mistake. Whereas the 76 of Al Turner is about 3.5 seconds to almost 4 seconds back of this front 7, so a little bit tougher for him to try to make any time up. But see how these drivers do. Is Ogle again coming under the attack of McArthur. McArthur kind of undercutting him down turn 4 back in the front stretch. We'll see as they drag race side by side into turn 1. Looks like McArthur has a slight advantage as they work their way into turn number 1. He does clear him this time through the center of 1 and 2. So put McArthur back in the lead, put Tom Ogle back to 2nd. Greg McDaniel may be trying to smell a little bit of weakness out of Ogle, see if he can get himself back into that 2nd spot. Weininger's kind of just sizing everybody up. Finley just watching them, saying, hey, you boys want to have at this. I'll sit back here, just stay close enough, and then at the end of the stint, I will try to strike and get on by you guys.
Yeah, we know he does have the pace. He showed it very early on, but this time he's behind the people he's trying to race, so he has someone to gauge off for the speed. and the tyre saving, so I think I definitely will be able to, he will be able to save, I think, a little bit more tyres through this middle stint, and will definitely serve some kind of advantage later on in the race, I think, because we know he has pace, but I think he just used that extra pace and kind of burn up his tyres too much, but I think he'll have it now. So if he gets an opportunity near to the end of the stint, I think that will be when he strikes.
Yeah, certainly you're seeing some different strategies unfold. All drivers really came in close to each other. We only saw roughly about a 5-lap, 6-lap separation between the first drivers initiating that round of pit stops around lap 50 to the last driver closing it off. But now you're starting to see some drivers and kind of size each other up. I think once they have that first set of tire data at their disposal to see what they had actually done with their tires, really gives them a chance to evaluate how their driving style is working with the tires in the setup. As well as they're going to see a little bit of a change in the track too as we go through this time. You're going to see a little bit of a temperature change as well. So drivers may recognize that they may need to make a slight adjustment, not only to maintain that tire wear that they're looking for, as well as adjust to those different track conditions too, as we've got certainly a decent length here with 150 laps, and we're not even to the halfway point yet, Finley. As we see Tom Oval diving back to the bottom for another battle at the front for the lead.
Yeah, I thought he was finished. I think he just wanted to get those lap led points, but no, he wants to lead the whole race here. Back down the inside of Dwayne Mcarthur in the 11 as the 11 is Forza stuck in behind. Will he have another go into turn 1? He has a little bit of a look, but I thought he was a little bit too ambitious this time round. Stuck in behind the 50. Oh, 83, excuse me.
You start to see a little bit of a separation from the front four, kind of as we saw forming in the previous stint, pulling a little bit away from Steve Thompson and Eddie Jones, as well as Michael Watts. But the longer these guys run side by side as well, if they get back to a battle for the front, that's going to allow Jones and Watts to be able to close back up, as effectively when you start running side by side, you are turning slightly slower lap times. Looks like they're also going to be approaching the 109 machine of Johnny Jackson in the next few laps, as he's about half a corner in front of them. So we'll see if that causes any issue. We haven't seen too much problems with lap traffic so far, Finley, but you never know when one of them could potentially impede a line of these front runners.
Yeah, the 109 of Johnny Jackson. He did pit a lap earlier than the drivers in front of him, or a lap earlier than their leaders. Maybe to try and get a tiny bit of an undercut and just push a little bit harder on those fresh tyres to begin with and gain that kind of time that he may have lost to begin with. But now he's starting to get cashed by our leaders. Gently, slowly, but they will catch in the next few laps or so. Already though, laps 68 of 150, approaching the midpoint of 75 for today's race. And it looks like we've had quite a little bit of an action already. We've had 3 different leaders and we've had a battle for the last 10 or 15 or so laps. So it's definitely been quite chaotic so far. Not the most amount of chaos I've seen in the race. We've gone green the whole way as we hit lap 69, the best lap of the race. As it looks like slightly behind. Who is that? I believe that will be... No, it won't be him. It will be Eddie Jones and Steve Thompson. I just saw Eddie Jones have a little bit of a look trying to get round the 67. He wasn't quite able to make it stick, but I think he definitely wants to get past him because he knows, I think he has the pace to tag back onto that front four, but he's just looking to get past and just be released to give him the opportunity to do so.
All these drivers are viewing this middle stage of the race as their opportunity to kind of set themselves up for a final run to the finish, even if the stage, the pit stints are going to be equal laps. They know this is one of the most important ones to get through this as cleanly, as efficiently as possible. Execute your goals to perfection. Put yourself in a position to try to be able to strike at the end. If you're not near the front, you're really going to have a tough time trying to do it. But another thing we can say too, there's a couple drivers still making some moves. Finley, Dan Hill in the number 10 Chevy Camaro has been able to move himself 10 spots up on the grid as he's currently running in 8th. Fortunately, just under 3 seconds back from the front 7, but he's certainly trying to do what he can to execute a great finish today, put himself in at least the top 10, if not possibly have a shot at that top 5 before the end of the event tonight.
Yeah, the number 10 in 10th place as well. It's almost like it was meant to be. Or 10th place, 10 stops up, excuse me. As he makes his way through the field, we'll have to wait and see how his pace is, kind of to leads in front, because he has been stuck behind drivers before, but maybe, just maybe, able to close that gap to our front 7, and maybe, possibly have a chance of tagging along and making up some more positions. But I think now is a very crucial point of the race. You may not see as many overtakes now as it starts to relax a little bit, coming now to the midpoint of the stint. now is kind of the point. Don't be fooled though, because there's not much action. You may think it's kind of a boring part of the race, but these drivers are just trying to think on how they can save their tires, because the middle stint is so important on how well you, or how fresh your tires are going to be for the last stint. Will you be able to pit right on the lap 100 mark, or do you think you'll still have enough tires to reliably go those extra 5 or so laps, which is going to be a massive advantage with the tire drop off at this track?
You can see Tom Ogle pushing the lap times, extending his gap out to about 6.5 tenths, running almost identical lap times to the 11 of Dwayne Mcarthur. Looks like McDaniel was your fastest of your front four the last time by. I think Ogle's just trying to separate himself a little bit, himself in a position, maybe some of what we saw at Weininger early on in the race, where they break free enough, have enough of a gap, and kind of be able to dial it back, control the tempo of the race, run at whatever he wants to dictate, rather than feel like he's being pushed from behind from another driver trying to attack his position and take the lead away. Certainly trying to get himself into a comfortable spot. As we look back at the number 9 Hooters Chevy Camaro machine of Brian Lynch, he is unfortunately down a couple spots, but still finds himself inside the top 10, so certainly well within the range of being able to have a good finish here. Kind of find himself in a little bit of a hole as well. See the 50 of Lynch back just off of him, but nobody else really too far around him, as it's almost 9 seconds up to the 76 of Al Turner. So it's kind of a spot where drivers can start to log laps and just kind of work their way through this middle stage, as we talk about. Is you would assume drivers are now roughly halfway through that second stint on their tires, Finley.
Yeah, I just saw Daryl Winninger. I think he managed to hit the wall just slightly in the 15 coming out of turn 4 there. I'm not sure as we turn, I'll be able to see. I don't think there is any damage to the 15, so I think he got a little bit lucky there. If anything, it would just be a little paint scraped off, nothing major. So he will possibly still be able to tag on to the back at the end of the pack. However, though, I'd like to mention, Tom Ogle has been able to stretch a gap to that second to fourth place. And he's looking quite strong on pace at the moment. We know he does have pace because he showed it very early in the stint. Very early in the first stint even, making up loads of positions. But I think now is his time to shine as they stretch that gap to around about 6.5 tenths now.
The other thing to remember with these current Gen Cup cars, Finley, they have gone to the composite body. Those composite bodies are able to flex and absorb a little bit of an impact much better than the former steel bodies that we had on the cars. So a light brush, like you may have seen with Weininger, now once before it would have been a big problem and caused some sort of aero disadvantage. Now, if you have just a little light scrape with the wall, oftentimes, like you said, it just removes some paint, maybe up that rough side, that right side a little bit, but it doesn't really do anything performance-wise. So drivers have a little bit of mistake, in a sense, like a mistake forgiveness, is the best way to put it. These drivers can make just a minor mistake and still be able to continue racing on. And we know, we've seen in real life time and time again, drivers like Kyle Larson have gotten in the walls and have been able to continue on with a very, very competitive pace. So same thing translates here in iRacing as well. So we'll see if that feeds into these drivers later on in the race, if they get a little aggressive with the lines they take in the corner, as we are riding on board with the number 30 Greg McDaniel machine. So he's just kind of following in the tire tracks of Dwayne Mcarthur, trying to size up where he wants to go. And he's pretty content to hold himself in that third position, as they've started to broken away a little bit from the 15 of Daryl Weininger. It's about 7/10 of a second back to Weininger from the back bumper of Greg McDaniel. So I think he's pretty content just to run with Dwayne Mcarthur. As we say that, Weininger peels off on the pit road for early service. Not sure if there was a problem there, or if he's really going to try to execute some massive alternative strategy to finish out this race, Finley. He is right on that edge of what he potentially could do on fuel. So if it goes great and he tries to undercut, that's going to be a really interesting one. That was far earlier than I would expect to have seen a driver in, if it's not for any kind of issue.
Yeah, you can definitely see that you're still kind of 20 laps short of the expected time. 20 laps is a very, very long time to be stuck on old tyres. So maybe if he does try and go to the end on this, or maybe he's going to try and push. But as we can see, as we're riding on board with Greg McDaniel, I believe, or Greg McArthur, we could see how much they were lifting into the corner and just how kind of I don't know, because, well, when you're the driver, you're kind of conscious of what you're doing, but it's kind of painful to watch how slow they were going in order to save the tyres, because you just know you can go so much faster. So maybe he's thinking, right, if I can put on these fresh tyres and not think about tyre saving, I can go a lot faster than the drivers around me, and maybe make up the time of that extra pit stop. Because I think he won't go for the one stop, because 20 laps is a very long time, as I said, to be on those older tyres. I think he'll be going for the two stop and just pushing hell to the wire.
I will have to see. It looks like it was a standard stop in terms of the time. Nothing to note in terms of an extended stay for any kind of damage repair or anything. Ryan Lindsay in the 24 is also peeled off. So see how these alternative strategies execute out, if it does indeed go the way you described, or if he tries to fuel save, expecting this to go green the rest of the way. But Google now able to extend that gap just under a second and a quarter over Greg Daniel. McDaniel actually extending his gap out from MacArthur as well, now up to nearly half a second. So we see the field again really kind of starting to stretch out as we get to that later stage of the fuel and the tire run. But it just kind of tend to just run their lines. You're seeing some people that are able to run a little bit faster, some able to run a little bit slower based on where their tires are at. Looks like it's going to be the number 17 of Larry Corey that Ogle's going to be approaching here as they round their way around. But yeah, you can see those differences so far in the initial lap that they pitted on for their first stop, as well as how many laps they've gone since then. So you can see Hill went right around that 50 lap mark. It's been 33 laps since then. He's been able to move himself up 11 spots as he's quickly worked into 7th now. Ogle up a lot of spots from his start as well, splitting that just a lap earlier. But you see they're really, for the most part, amongst our top 10, almost all identical laps that they came in. Just a couple laps variance, which with Ryan Lynch being that outlier, they're pinning just a little bit later on lap number 52, and it shows that it might have hurt him a little bit as he's fallen 2 spots from where he started in 7th today.
Yeah, we can definitely see that Ogle stretching 2 laps more than McDaniel, which means he has 2 laps fresher tyres than them. And I think that's starting to show now as that gap's starting to stretch to 1.3 seconds now. As you just pull up their dashboard in the bottom right of the screen, we can see how quick these drivers are going, reaching 160, possibly 170 mile an hour down that front straightaway. You can just see these guys are going fast still.
Yeah, you saw Brian Lindsay still on pit road. I think he's got some damage to repair, but Ogle quickly worked by both the number 4 Busch Light Ford Mustang and Mike Schrader, as well as the 17 Western Auto of Larry Corey. These are 2 drivers that are unfortunately not having quite the turnout they would like, as you saw Schrader works right back by Ogle. Ogle works his way across the start-finish line to begin lap number 87 here. So we're a few laps past the halfway point, but still not even to that back third of the race, Finley. So these drivers still have a lot of laps left to navigate. A lot of time that they could easily make a mistake and have this race go awry from what they had planned.
Yeah, it's still a lot of time that things could go wrong for these drivers. It could go wrong at any point. Anything could happen because we still have around about 100 and I would say 163 laps remaining of this race. Oh, sorry, 163 laps, not 163. We have 63 laps remaining of this race, which is still a very long time because we know what happened in those first 63 laps. Tom Ogle managed to gain 7 spots as he went all the way from P10 to P3. So really, if a driver really stands out, and maybe they're kind of sitting in the low line, kind of under the radar, saving up their tyres, could really come to the main light if they somehow manage to then use up those tyres which they saved up and start making up their position. But for now, as it looks like the gaps are starting to spread out a little bit, our closest drivers always looks like there's a little bit of back and forth here between Brian Lynch and maybe Robert Garisco, I think it is, yeah. Robert Garisco, was sorry, John Hinchcliffe, excuse me, in the 50 managed to get past. The Garisco is also coming quite close. Brian Lynch is running really slow up behind the number 9 Hooters back machine. So I'm not quite sure what happened to him. He ran very long. He does have fresher tyres than the drivers around him by about 5 or so laps. But I think he may have just burned them up.
Yeah, I think he might have had a bit of an issue maybe gotten out of line because he was quite a bit of a difference the last time by in lap times compared to Garisco, almost 2 seconds slower. Current hard charger Dan Hill peels off of turn number 4 to come down the pit road. So you're starting to see maybe the beginnings of the opening of the second stop window. I think drivers with the extended fuel range that they could go compared to what they did the first stop, maybe looking to come in, as we said, take advantage of that fresh rubber, try to gain a bit of an advantage. And with it now only being just 61 laps to go, it's a lot more attainable to stretch your fuel within that, since that's at that opening of the fuel window, so compared to what some of the other drivers have done. Weininger with that pit stop that was about 12 laps sooner. So see how that executes. A lot of storylines to follow as we work our way into the final third of the race. But other one to make note, Eddie Jones in the 14 was able to get himself by the 67 as Team Thompson. So puts Jones up to fourth with Weininger pitting out of the top four, but he was able to leave Thompson. So that may play into his hands as they enter the closing stage of this race. And Lee may be able to insert himself into that top four pack that we saw form up, maybe have a shot at taking home the win today before the end of the event.
Yeah, it could definitely still be a possibility. Because we know they were there to begin with. They do have the pace. They've dropped off a little bit since then. But I think just, yeah, they could still have a chance. They could play something different with the pit strategy. Pit at 2 laps earlier or 2 laps later. Or just, yeah, just play something different. Because at this point, I think they know they don't quite have the pace to tag along for the whole stint. So really their only chance of making it more positions is going to have to play those strategy games. As we see though, they have a 15-second gap back to John Hinchcliffe in the 50 machine. So if they do make a mistake with the strategy, they've definitely got a lot of buffer zone to work with. So I'd say take it. Take the risk. I think it's worth it.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out as we continue to watch the 84 of Michael Watts trying to close up to the 67 of Steve Thompson. Steve Thompson, your current front-running Toyota Camry out there. For the most part, Chevys are dominating the front, but we have Fords really trying to occupy the top 10 as well, making a name for themselves. You see, we were working lap number 94 of 150. Last time by Michael Watts, just ever so slightly faster than Steve Thompson, so we'll see if that continues on. I think we have a couple more drivers. John Hinchcliffe coming on to pit road. Looks like he is out for his service. A little bit of a slower stop. Tom Ogle also peeling in. So as I said, looks like drivers knowing that their cars can go a little bit further on fuel, maybe wanting to get the fresh rubber a little bit sooner than they did the first stop. Kind of feeling this out and trying to set themselves up to make the advantage as they work their way through the final third of today's event.
Yeah, lap 95 for 150 now. Only 55 laps remain as Greg McDaniel takes over the lead after Tom Ogle draws down pit road, and now he chose to go down pit road as well. So 4 laps before that expected point. It is around about that pit window, but now it looks like most of the drivers are choosing to pit early and take those tyres 4 to 5 laps earlier. So it looks like they think they can stretch it a little bit longer. They think the fresher rubber to begin with is going to be better to make sure he doesn't lose that track position. Tom Ogle choosing to cover over and not lose any advantage due to an overcut, because he knows 1 second is not a whole lot to gain. Drop off being around about 2 seconds a lap with these older tyres. In 2 or 3 laps he could be past him. So I think he knows he doesn't want to lose that track position, because he did take him a while to get past. They were having a battle, but definitely you still want to remain in front. It is where you want to be here tonight. Steve the Mule Thompson and Al Turner, as we talked about before, both choosing to... Oh no, it's Al Turner. That is... Al Turner's 3 seconds behind. We can see that I believe that is Dan Hill in the 10 machine, working his way past our leader, getting his lap back here tonight. But it looks like, as I was saying before, Steve Thompson is trying to pull that alternate strategy game. It looks like he's staying out even longer now. We can see Tom Ogle starting to catch up to the back. He knows this is his opportunity to play an alternate strategy. And he can take the risk. He has the buffer zone he needs. Just stay out just a little bit longer. And just, it may pay off with him with the fresh tyres throughout the stint. But he doesn't want to play it too late, because then he would have lost too much time that he can gain back.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that plays out. As again, we saw when we looked before your previous top 10, how long they had been running since their previous pit stop and how many positions they had gained or lost since their start of the event. We did happen to notice the drivers that went a little bit longer were not gaining quite as many spots, so I think he may want to be a little cautious of that based on how long he wants to go to see That's going to put him, but once he does pit out of the lead, that'll actually put the 15 of Darrell Weininger up to the lead. He was the one that started this very, very early on, back in lap number 79. So he's got quite a ways to go to get to Thompson, but has been continually running laps that were about a second a lap faster. So that advantage, even with Weininger pitting earlier than all the other drivers, this is the advantage of fresh tires over the older tires that are on Steve Thompson's car. So we'll see how that closes down. But also the interesting thing to note, Finley, Dan Hill's running in third. So behind Weininger, he's got tires that are 10 laps fresher. We'll see the earlier pit stop for Weininger proves to be the better strategy as to put him out in front, or will Dan Hill with those fresher tires work out? And then you've got right behind him lurking just about 3/4 of a second is the 83 of Tom Ogle. He pitted even 5 laps later than Dan Hill, so we could have right in the front three those 3 alternate strategies, and we'll see if they start to manifest themselves really quickly as to which one seems to be the superior choice.
Yeah, Dan Hill does have the track position over Tom Ogle, but Tom Ogle, as you said, does have 5 lap pressure tyres. So you can just see him closing that gap slowly, but he won't be in a rush to get past him. We still have 48 laps remaining of this race to cross the line, so there's still a lot of racing to go. But it looks like Dan Hill is in a pretty, Dan Hill is in a pretty good position as it stands at the moment. He could definitely still play a factor in this race. Up 15 spots, may I add, from where he started. In 3rd place now he is.
I'll be very interested to see how long our leader, Steve Thompson, chooses to stay out. He was actually one of our first drivers to pit in the first round of pit stops. He came back in on lap number 47. So judging by the expected fuel limit that we saw, he really can only stretch it to maybe lap 113 or 114. So be curious to see if he tries to take it all the way to that, or if he tries to go any sooner. I mean, reasonably, we could expect him to see at any point right now, but you see Tom Ogle makes a power move coming off the low side out of turn 2 down the backstretch, pulls in front of Dan Hill. So put Ogle back to 3rd place, Dan Hill back to 4th. I think that might have been that difference in fresh tires that we were talking about, Finley. Even those 5 laps can make a difference if what the driver feels confident that their car is capable of, and where they have that grip to provide that extra bit of speed to get around a competitor.
Yeah, you could just see though, Dan Hill, I think he did let him pass because he did go back up to the high side, giving Tom Ogle the low side. So I definitely think he knows that he's quicker, and he doesn't want to hold him up too much because it's not really his race at the moment. He was running about 15 seconds behind pretty much that whole first 2 stints. So he knows maybe this isn't my race. I want to make sure that I stay in front of the guys I am racing, and maybe just stick him behind him if I do have the speed still, because you can use the draft to kind of compensate the speed difference a little bit, and maybe stick him behind. That's just going to help me in my race and not hold us up battling.
Yeah, the other thing that'll be certainly interesting to watch is we are working lap number 105 now as Thompson just clicked past the start-finish line. Heininger still has about a second of a lap advantage in terms of the lap time, so we'll be curious to see what that gap standing at 15, just over 15.5 seconds between Thompson and Weininger. Theory, Weininger won't be able to get to Thompson before Thompson has to pit, but we'll be curious to see how that works out through the next few laps. As again, really expect Thompson to be in the next probably 10 laps at most. You're looking at Eddie Jones back to 7th. He'll work his way back up as these pit stops cycle through. Quickly working on the back of Greg McDaniel and Dwayne Mcarthur. This potentially could be also a race for the lead as these drivers pitted a little bit later than Dan Hill. So we'll have to see. Tom Ogle, if he was pushing the car a little hard, maybe burning up the rubber a little bit faster than these 3 drivers. These drivers are able to catch Dan Hill. They're currently just under 4 seconds back, but also we're gaining on him to the tune about half a second a lap. See this potentially be the battle for the lead and the race win, which Eddie Jones, as we talked about, trying to insert himself into that picture by the end of today's event. Certainly seems to be poised in a good spot right now to do that as they work their way back off of turn number 4 onto the front stretch here.
Yeah, a point to note as well, I'm trying to work out their gap around about, it's quite a gap between Tom Ogle and Dwayne Mcarthur. So we do know that Tom Ogle did choose to, he came down on pit road on that 94, which I say that is the same lap as Dwayne Mcarthur, Greg Down and Eddie Jones. if I can scroll back a little bit and see what pit time he got, but it looks like he may have taken not the full tyre set or just one can of fuel, meaning that he has managed to gain that much time.
I think what you're seeing, it looks like they pitted for the same amount of time. I
Yeah.
think what you're seeing is Tom Okel might have been pushing that a little bit harder off the beginning of that run, trying to take advantage of that grip, maybe close back to the leader. I think that's where you might be seeing that difference, Finley.
Yeah.
So that's what I was talking about. We'll be interested to see, did he burn his tires up too hard? Very similar to what we saw off the start of the race when he was making those passes by everybody. Is that going to come back to hurt him at the end of this race if he doesn't have as much rubber as the competitors that pitted around him, you know, mainly McDaniel, McArthur, and Jones?
Yeah, you have to remember that this stint is 5 laps longer than the ones around them, because he did pit on the same lap. He does have the same age of tyres, but it looks like it. Yeah, I think MacArthur, Eddie Jones, and Watts, for example, and Greg McDaniel, all have saved their tyres just a little bit more, trying to hanging back a little bit. And I think they will definitely start to close that gap again come later the stint. We do know Tom Okel does have pace, and he was stretching that gap out in front. But yeah, I don't know, because he's pushed quite early on, even though the stint is longer. I'm not quite sure what he has in his head. Maybe he thinks that he can make it to the end, and that gap is going to be enough to hold back. But you want to be careful not to burn them up too much, because this is the last pit stop. You don't really have another go to fix your strategy. This is the last chance you got if you don't have another caution tonight.
I think the other thing that we're going to talk about, your call on Weininger seems to be coming true as Weininger quickly pulls onto the pit road. Looks like he was going to take that remaining 70 laps or so and split it almost in half. He came in right around 30 laps or so, leaving himself with about 40 laps. Pretty close to splitting that stint in half. It certainly allows him the ability to be able to push very hard at the remaining stages of the race should we not have a caution. But I'm going to be very, very curious to see, Finley, how that strategy works out. If he's going to have enough laps left to be able to make up that time. It's great that he can push hard, but we've seen that those passes can be very hard to execute at times. The other thing he may be hoping for at this point as well is potentially a caution if he can get himself back on the lead lap. If he's able to get a caution, you may see drivers choose to come in and take over that front spots and then just hope by that clean air and track position to hold that lead. That may also be a bit tough too, depending on how many laps it takes to get to that point. So see what's happening. You see some of these drivers that pit a bit earlier starting to fall to these fresher tires as these McArthur and Jones all working by Dan Hill. Dan Hill falling back to 6th place now again. He came in 5 to 6 laps later or earlier than these 3 drivers. So seeing that power of those fresh tires or those little bit fresher tires kind of manifest itself. So curious to see. Steve Thompson's got to be coming in soon, Finley. I don't think he has much fuel left in that tank. So be curious to see how that works out as he continues to stay out on the track as he works back into turn number 1. It's going to be your wild card of the event, I think, Finley, in terms of what happens for the race lead.
Yeah, I think it's going to turn up as quite similarly to how Weininger is kind of playing his strategy at the moment. I think he'll be like pitting around about now. I think he'll pit this time by as he's starting to get in a little bit of traffic and will lose a bit more time. No, he stays out for another lap. I'm not quite sure what kind of strategy he's trying to play here. Surely he's got to go down pit road soon. Going back to kind of what you said about Weininger as well, I think what he does is what he was timing his pit stop, because he was actually ahead of the drivers he was playing before of Dwayne Mcarthur, Greg McDaniel and Tom Ogle. He was just waiting for them to catch up because he was ahead, and as soon as they caught up, that's when he went down pit road. So he's cut it in 2, and now I think he will have the pace to just about catch him by the end of the stint, and he will have the fresher tyres, but would he have burnt them up too much to then kind of equal out as he gets there, and maybe not gain any net positions? As we have 34 laps remaining of this race now, 35 laps of the Metro Ford Cup Series here in Nashville Superspeedway tonight, round 17 of the championship. Yeah, there's a lot of wild cards here tonight, but I'm very interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, interesting media commentator story of me wants to see Steve Thompson finish in that podium so we can ask him about that strategy. You see him peeling off now. I didn't suspect he could have gone much further. He was pushing that fuel window about the furthest we've seen anybody. So we'll see if he's able to gain anything. Remember, again, he started in 4th place today, so in theory, if he's able to finish anywhere from 2nd to 4th, you would say yes, that was a correct strategy, as he didn't fall off further. But I'm sure he's going to be trying to dig as hard as he can. Just be interested to see both him and Weininger will be on very similar strategies to close out today's event. See what that is able to do. But that puts Tom Ogle back into the lead. He's got roughly a 2-second advantage over the 30 of Greg McDaniel, and then there's about another second to a second and a tenth ahead from MacArthur as we're looking at MacArthur and Eddie Jones. So Eddie Jones still there in 4th place. Finley, he may be the one that executed this the best, both with the tire saving that we were cued into earlier on, as well as the timing of his last stop. All the drivers now in the top 4 have all pitted within a lap of each other, but we're going to see who saved tires at this point, who is driving their cars as efficiently as possible, as both MacArthur and Jones are working their way by the number 91. That's Chris Clark in the Ford Mustang. Then that Mountain View Ford Mustang. The car pops on the track, but unfortunately he's just not having the day he was looking for.
Yeah. Although, going back to what you're saying about Eddie Jones, though, he's definitely one to watch in this race. He's definitely been a bit of a wild card in how he's played his tyre wear, because he's definitely been saving early on in the stint and starting to use it up later on. You can see he has caught up to the back and he is within that lead pack at the moment behind Dwayne Mcarthur. Tom Ogle at the moment is still leading by approximately 2 seconds, so the gap is coming down very slowly. But 2 seconds is a lot here at Ovals. It's very, very difficult to make up that time without really a mistake or anything to kind of latch onto. But Eddie Jones has definitely played a strategy very, very well here. He's teaming up with the 83, or the 11, excuse me. I don't know why I said 83 then. The 11 of Dwayne Mcarthur. He's just latching onto the back at the moment, pushing and saving. Well, I wouldn't say pushing. He's saving his tyres and just working with him and just waiting for the right moment to make the move. Because I'm sure he's been saving his tyres so much and he's proven that he can save his tyres, the 14 car. I think he's just waiting for an opportunity. Later on in the race, with like 4 or 5 laps to go, he's going to start turning on. And then that's when he's going to start making his moves. Or maybe he'll start making moves earlier on and start thinking about the cars ahead. But for now, I'll just think about the number 11. Because there is a large gap in front of us. And really, that's who you're racing at the moment.
That's certainly a big advantage, or a big difference in lap times, as your leader and the 2nd place car running almost identical. The last time by at a 32.40. Daniel slows down a little bit to a 32.68, so he's much more in line with both MacArthur and Jones, the last two. Those two by returning 32.70 and 32.75 respectively. So Tom Ogle certainly pushing by far the hardest on the track. Of all the drivers that pitted around that lap 95 range, he is still running some of the fastest lap times. But is that going to hurt him, as we've still got 29 laps to go, 28 as he just crosses the line? Have to see, is that going to start to manifest itself later on as we get to the last few laps of the race, to where he starts falling off more compared to the drivers around him? Or did he build up enough of a gap now, or working on building up enough of a gap that's just too much for those drivers to overcome?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, coming back, it looks like Newell Thompson has been able to start to make his way up, making his way past, getting his lap back from, that was Eddie Jones and Dwayne Mcarthur there. So we can see he's got the pace with the fresher tyres, but he's got to be careful not to burn up too much. But I think now he's got to use, as I say that, really, tyre wear is kind of out of the window. He's got 25 laps really to go, and he hasn't got to think about tyre wear as much. He can start pushing loads on those tyres, but he's got a lot of time to make up here. A lot of time.
Remember, he still is a lap down. He still has not gotten to Tom Ogle yet to get that lap back. So only working, I mean, he's working some positions here as both Weininger in the 15 Flow Racing Chevy Camaro, as well as the 26 Wonder Bread machine of Lloyd Moore. Those are both forward position on track for Thompson as he works by Moore and trying to work to the inside of Weininger. You see he's approaching the 30 of Greg McDaniel. Greg McDaniel scored as the 2nd place driver. We get a momentary 3 wide there as both Weininger and Thompson were able to split McDaniel, but he's got quite a bit of a gap to make up with just 25 laps to go, Finley. it's going to be a pretty tall task to
Yeah.
execute that one out.
I think he's
with the fresh
definitely,
tires.
yeah, he's definitely dragged this one out a little bit too long. I think he has still got a lap Tom Ogle. He has got about 2 seconds till he does so. But with 25 laps, a whole lap to gain, the rate of closure is definitely going to close throughout the stint as well, because as you're pushing harder, those tyres are going to wear out quicker. And I think he stretched out that stint on the older tyres just a little bit too long. But I wouldn't write out Darrell Weininger either. He has still got a lap Tom Ogle as well. Actually, I think he may be in a little bit of the same boat here. Thompson does have slightly fresher tyres than Weininger. Weininger does have the speed, but I think, yeah, they're both clear a little bit too late here. If they were going to try and make up those positions again, they would have had to pit a little bit earlier and give themselves more time to do it. Because the time that they spent on the older tyres just hasn't really helped them. And I think it's just dragged them back.
Thompson able to unlap himself by Ogle, so he's got a little bit less than a full lap, which is roughly around 32.5 to 33 seconds. Weininger trying to set himself up to also get by Ogle. One to note, Finley, that I want to make a comment about. Ogle's lap times are starting to drop off a little bit. Not sure if that's a product of starting to run around some of this lap traffic, maybe having to move for both Steve Thompson as well as potentially Darrell Weininger in the next few laps. Greg McDaniel's been pushing lap times a little faster. Dwayne Mcarthur has, Eddie Jones has, Dan Hill has, Michael Watson, the 84 has. I think that might also be a product of that early run pace on this last stint of tires that we were talking about with Tom Ogle, that he might have pushed it a little more. So be curious to see now, does he have enough of a lead over the other drivers in the top 5? Or are they going to start to be able to come away at that lead with some faster lap times? Just 22 laps to go. It'll be 21 this time by when Ogle crosses the line on the front stretch. So there's not many laps left, but if he continues to fall back on the lap times and the drivers are able to go a bit faster, you could see one or two of these drivers in the second, third, or fourth place maybe insert their names for a race win before too long.
Yeah, 100%. There's definitely still some laps to go to try and decide that battle for the lead here. Greg McDaniel 1.2 seconds behind. He's definitely still within the shot as that gap is slowly closing Tom Ogle. So, yeah, baby Tom Ogle stretched out that gap, pushed a little bit harder, as now he doesn't have as fresh tyres. So especially if we have a late caution here tonight, he could definitely be at risk from losing that top spot. Greg McDaniel's looking really fast at this stage of the race.
Yeah, certainly last time by, he was right around 4/10 of a lap faster than Tom Ogle, and with only 1.2 seconds to go, you do the math, Finley. 20 laps to go, 4/10 a lap. I don't think those two numbers are going to equal out. We could see a battle right there for the lead.
Yeah.
Honestly, depending on the gap, Dwayne Mcarthur, Eddie Jones are close enough. They're only separated by a 1/10.5. Granted, they are 4 seconds back from Ogle, but there's the outside possibility we could see a 3 or 4 car battle for this race lead before the end of the event.
Yeah, there definitely could be a massive possibility. We now pan back to Eddie Jones. He's only about 2/10 back from Greg McDaniel. So yeah, he's kind of sticking in very close there. We've got a 3-car pack. Or yeah, no, that's a lap car behind. Excuse me. But we do have Greg McDaniel and Eddie Jones very close together, slowly working their way back up, trying to not lose contact with you, Greg McDaniel. I think they may be saving their tyres, or maybe they're just starting to drop back because they don't quite have the pace. We'll have to wait to see how that flourishes. But if they have saved those tyres, around about in a couple of laps' time, we'll be starting to now, when they start to push a little bit more, if they have saved those tyres. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out.
Yeah, certainly the last time by lap times as they come across the line. This last time by Tom Ogle was actually able to almost match Greg McDaniel's lap time. He was only about 0.03 of a second off of what Greg McDaniel does. So the longer he can continue to keep his lap times mirroring McDaniel, or even possibly gain a little bit on him, it just means that much more that McDaniel has to gain per lap. So while there's still roughly about 1.3 seconds between Ogle and McDaniel, certainly he's going to try to work on that. Looks like McArthur is able to separate himself a little bit from Eddie Jones now. They're going to cross the start-finish line. We'll look at their lap times as well. Time by Earns almost an identical lap time to Jones. Jones might have had a bit of a mistake, but the problem is if they start mirroring those lap times with Eddie Jones being about 6/10 back, that may be a bit too much to overcome there. But certainly Eddie Jones, up 2 spots from where he started, running in the 4th position. I'm sure he's not all unhappy with that. I just think he smells more spots available for him, and he's going to try to get that. I don't know any racer that's out there on the track that doesn't want to try to gain more his positions, Finley.
Yeah, you can see though that Tom Ogle and Greg McDaniel last time by, Greg McDaniel was about 8 thousandths of a second slower, so pretty much matching the lap times of Tom Ogle there. However, as we go, actually no, I say that the lap before Tom Ogle and Greg McDaniel had equal lap times. Dwayne Mcarthur was about 2/10 slower, but this time round, it looks like Eddie Jones. So the top 4 pretty much all got identical lap times there, running 32.7s in that sort of range. Yeah, looking back at the lap times, there's no one really looking that much quicker. So, yeah, this battle is definitely stuck with these top 4, but as it stands, I think the battle's going to be between Tom Ogle and Greg McDaniel for the win.
Yeah, we'll have to see. McDaniel was chopping that gap down. He had it as close to almost 1 second, and it's kind of ballooned back up to around a second, anywhere between 1.35 and 1.5 seconds. So you can see, as we focus on Greg McDaniel, Tom Ogle was just on the front side of your screen as we came out of turn number 4. Curious to see, Ogle's starting to open that up a little bit. So with just 13 laps to go, he can maintain anything too close to McDaniel's. He might be able to hang on to that. So, and we're seeing a couple different strategies, even though drivers pitted around similar lap times, how they drove their machines out there, used their tires. That's where it's kind of starting to manifest itself. But another thing we'll have to be curious as well as comes into a factor before the end of this would be lap traffic. Right now, Tom Ogle's got a fairly clean track in front of him. Daniel able to see that. Got a couple lap cars that they're going to be coming by, but for the most part, it seems fairly clean. But if they get in too much of a mix, it could affect Ogle's lap times, his laps, could affect McDaniel. You could easily see some of these gaps tighten back up. So 12 laps seems like a very shorter amount, but there's still plenty of time for anything to happen out there, Finley.
Yeah, there's plenty of time. Greg Daniel, though, is lapping there very, very slightly, sort of matching Tom Ogle's lap time, but once in a while Tom Ogle is putting in those quicker times. So as it stands, that gap is slowly extending. 1.7 seconds it is now between our top 2. I think Tom Ogle, going against kind of what I said before, I think he does kind of have the pace here. He is maybe controlling the gap. And yeah, I think he still has some tyres left in there. And he has control at the moment. And if he doesn't make any mistakes, this really should be his race to lose now.
Yeah, it does seem he is gaining more control out of that. Doing a great job, able to navigate lap traffic with fairly ease as he worked by the 17 of Larry Corey. Put Larry Corey 2 laps down now. Just 10 laps to go as he works his way back into the middle of the backstretch. Now we have just 12 cars scored on the lead lap to go with Robert Garisco as your last car. So check the lap times again as the drivers work their way back onto the start-finish line. Looks like McDaniel was able to work by the 17 of Corey as well. Last time by McDaniel, a little bit faster than Ogle, about a 1/10 and a half, but he's going to need to chop off more than that because not only does he have about a 1.5 second gap to close up, he's got to be able to have more speed than that. So we're also looking back here. We've got the 15 of Weininger, 9 of Brian Lynch, and the 50 of John Hinchcliffe. This is a battle for 9th through 11th on track. A couple of these drivers used similar pit strategies between Hinchcliffe and Lynch. Weininger with that later pit strategy. We'll see if those fresher tires allow him to continue to close up. Gonna try to look to insert himself back into the top 10. I know it's certainly not the pole that he had that he started off the event so strong with, but he's certainly trying to make the best recovery out of this as he can. See if he can time this as a 2-for-1, but certainly with Lynch and Hinchcliffe running that lower line and that middle line, it's going to be tough for him to try to get by both of them in one corner, Finley. I think he might have to work a little bit of patience here as he was able to get to the inside of Hinchcliffe there. So we'll see if he sets the sight on Lynch and how quickly he makes that pass happen.
Yeah, I don't think he has the tyres that he had earlier on in the stint, and now it's starting to hurt him with 7 laps remaining. he's really starting to slow down now. He just doesn't really have the advantage he has before. He's kind of like, he can't quite get past the number 9. He will get past, but it's just taking him longer than it really should do. But yeah, with 7 laps remaining, Weininger is kind of stuck where he is. Once he gets past Brian Lynch, he's got 6 seconds to Thompson. So yeah, Thompson's in a little bit of a better spot, but he still has around about 4 seconds to Al Turner in front. So both of our drivers with the alternate strategy they're kind of stuck where they are now. They've kind of gone the most they can, and unfortunately the strategy call, that gamble which they took, hasn't really worked for them tonight. Which is a little bit of a shame to see, but yeah, they definitely will learn from this and will bring a better strategy in for next race, I think. Maybe take a little bit less risk.
You see Weininger able to complete the pass through 3 and 4. He pulls away now from Brian Lynch. He's got 7 seconds to go to Steve Thompson, as you mentioned, Finley. Yeah, I think that might be a bit too much of a gap, but certainly I think you're going to stand a driver dig because you never know what could happen. Looks like Tom Ogle's quickly approaching the 50 of John Hinchcliffe to put him a lap down as they work their way through the middle of turn 3 and 4. So could potentially end up seeing a couple more drivers fall to the clutches of Ogle and fall off the lead lap as we have just 4 laps to go. Daniel has that gap cut down. It's gone to a second, but I think he's going to have the same issue that Ogle had that might have reduced that gap a little bit, lap traffic. It's one thing for the driver in front of you to get stalled out behind them and you be able to close down, but then you also have to execute the same pass to get around that lap traffic, which will do the same thing to you. So you'll see that gap kind of cut down and then it kind of extends back out as you try to work around that driver. So with just 3 laps to go this time by, it'll be interesting to see, can McDaniel make any massive changes in that gap? He's got over a second to go, and that seems like it's going to be pretty tough to do without some sort of outside influence to Tom Ogle, Finley.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, Trevor McDaniel before this lap did go 2 tenths quicker, but now they're running kind of, yeah, the same as for the lap times here. So it looks like McDaniel's kind of hit a brick wall with these lap traffic. He's going to have to maybe with some... Yeah, really, if he's going to have any chance of getting back at Tom Ogle, it's going to have to be some kind of lap traffic holding him up. Because with 2 laps to go, there isn't really a whole lot he can do. So coming into the dying moments of this race, Tom Ogle is looking like he'll be able to come home with the win tonight. Another strong racer coming home with another win in this series. The 83 is looking really, really strong this year.
Yeah, certainly executed that pit strategy to perfection and really seems to be doing a good job at working that out today. We've certainly seen a great race so far out here.
As a white flag flies here tonight at Nashville Superspeedway, as we switch their static cameras, we just hear the beautiful sound of all the drivers driving past. In iRacing, these cars do sound very, very nice, especially when you get a shot right up next to the wall here with the drivers zooming by. I just love it. They're going back now, coming into turn 4 now. There's not really a whole lot that can do as he comes out the final corner. Tom Ogle, as he crossed the line to win round 17 of the Metropole Cup Series here tonight. Coming home in second place is Greg McDaniel. Dwayne Mcarthur is your top 3 here tonight. Drivers with solid strategies kind of going the same sort of way. But Tom Ogle there, just choosing to pit early in that final stint, which really worked out for him with that gap. I thought maybe he burned off his tyres gaining that gap to begin with, but it looks like he was able to keep it. What a race driven by him. He really deserves this one.
Yeah, certainly a great drive by him. Certainly a great drive by our top 3. We see Greg McDaniel able to squeak out his 4th top 5 of the season. So certainly a great performance, or excuse me, 3rd top 5 of the season. Certainly great performance by him. And a mainstay in our top 5 has been Dwayne Mcarthur all season. This is his 14th on the season out of 17 events. So certainly a strong run by him. Give all the drivers a few moments to cool down, kind of give themselves a chance to collect their thoughts, let Ogle celebrate. We'll see if we can get our top 3 finishers into the waiting room, see if we can grab a quick post-race interview with them.
Yeah, we're just waiting for them to come into the broadcast waiting room. I'll just give them a quick message, a little bit of a bump to remember to come down here. As I say that, yeah. Slow down. let's talk to our third place driver first, Dwayne Mcarthur. Hi, do you have a copy?
Hey fellas, yeah, I got you.
So a really strong race from you, coming home in third place at number 11, being one of the only. Well, yeah, it was a really strong race from you. Last Ditch Racing coming home in third and fourth place here tonight. Another good finish for the team. How'd that one go for you?
The first fuel run went kind of how I planned, and then I'm not sure. Lost my rhythm, just started getting slower. So a little disappointed, but I mean a podium here is still good.
Certainly, you guys had a little bit of kind of a changing of guard on that first fuel run. We saw Weininger kind of take the lead early on, and then you were able to grab it after that. Did you feel like being out front was most important to execute your strategy, or did you kind of maybe have to dial it back a little bit with some tire saving throughout different points in the race today?
When you were right behind somebody, the car was a little bit tight in the air, so you never really wanted to be right behind anyone. But the first run was about pacing. I felt like I had a good pace for the long run, and then I don't know, kind of got off my strategy when Ogle showed up and McDaniel, and I kind of short pitted and then maybe ran a little different line. I don't know. Should have just stayed with what I know and seen how it worked out, but got in my own head.
Yeah, but it's still a big three. I definitely wouldn't complain about that one. Before we sign off, though, Dwayne, is there anyone like friends, family, sponsors like to shout out before we go?
Yeah, just a big shout out to everybody here in this league. It's great running. Nothing like going a caution free on a big concrete oval that was very hot. Thanks to all the admins who run the league. Our sponsors: Metro Ford Chicago, Kim Bowl, Victory Lane Sports, and to Team Goon Squad for your broadcast you guys put on. So, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Dwayne. Hopefully we'll see you here next week.
You betcha. Take care, guys. Good job.
Take it. That's our second place driver, or third place driver even here tonight, Dwayne Mcarthur. Just bringing up Greg Daniel now, coming home in second place there. It looks like you had very good pace at the end there. For moments, it looks like you might just catch Tom Ogle, but you just kind of ran out of lap times there. Yeah, you just ran out of laps. How was that going, like, near the end?
I saw Tom hit the wall with a couple laps to go, and that gave me a glimmer of hope. But he was in a class of his own today. I was just my only chance to get around him would have been if he'd have made a huge mistake or something, which he never does. So but other than that, I'm pretty happy with how I ran.
You certainly looked like for a period towards the closing stages, maybe with like 15 to 20 laps to go, you were chopping off quite a bit of the gap off of Tom Mogul, running lap times faster. Did you feel like maybe you saved a little bit of tires earlier on after you had pitted that final time, or did you feel like you were trying to keep like an even pace the whole run?
I thought maybe I might have had a couple percent. I can't remember if I pitted on the same lap as him on the last stop. I think I might have pitted one lap later. So I was hoping maybe my tires would be a little bit better at the end, but I think a lot of the time I made up on him probably was due to lap traffic. He was just being careful getting through there, and he like I said, he was in a league of his own today.
A solid result, though, unfortunately. Yeah, you just kind of run out of laps to get him. But yeah, is there any friends, family, sponsors like to shout out before we go home?
Yes, this is my first time getting to do this, so I want to thank all the members of this league. It's a really good league of nice people. As you can see, we didn't have a caution flag, and everybody races each other clean. I want to thank the admins that run this league because they do a really good job, and it's a well-run league. You guys for broadcasting these, I always watch them. Within an hour or two, my girlfriend and I will be watching this together in a couple hours. And lastly, I want to thank her, Sharon, my girlfriend. I love you. Thank you for supporting my habit here and allowing me to do this. And I think that's it.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see you next week, Greg. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Take care. That was the second place driver, Greg McDaniel, here tonight. However, though, the man of the hour, Tom Ogle, showing absolute dominance here tonight with a really, really strong first stint. I just want to touch upon that. You were gaining so many positions. I think you were 7 spots up at near the end of that first stint. Just what was going on there? Was it just the bad qualifying, or did you just really start pushing?
got loose both laps in qualifying, and I just wanted to get a lap down because I thought I was going to wreck and end up starting 30th or something, you know?
Yeah, but I just want to touch upon that as well. Just like you gaining so many positions there, it's so difficult to overtake. What was kind of the strategy going into all the overtakes? It looks like you're going down to the inside, trying to just edge them out. But yeah, like what were you trying to do there?
This track, if you get right down on the line, there's extra grip down there for some reason. I don't know why. And then you kind of wait. I was waiting to get back on the gas, so I wasn't scrubbing my right front up off the corner and scrubbing speed the whole time. Just I really concentrated on staying on that bottom line. And then when I got, you run behind somebody, and then I got around Dwayne, and I had to completely get back in rhythm.
Well, it certainly seems like you were kind of the one to dictate the pit stops. You both initiated for the most part the first round of pit stops as well as the second one. It seemed to play in your benefit having that extra lap of fresh tires at the beginning of the next run on everybody. Did you kind of have that pre-planned, or were you feeling that out as the race went green and thought maybe there wasn't going to be any cautions to come into play?
So they short pitted me that first time, and I didn't want that to happen the second time because I knew it would be way tougher to pass the second time around. So I decided to go at 55, with 55 to go, just so nobody could short pit me. I didn't want to have to pass guys back and burn up my tires getting to the. But then I came out of the pits and Daryl had pitted, and I ran a little bit too hard, thinking I might not catch him because he way short pitted us.
Certainly did a great job executing that. Looked like I would say you could have executed any better, bringing it home with the win. You're second of the season. I'm sure that feels great to bring home today too.
Yeah, really good. It's kind of been rough switch to this cup car. I haven't been running that well, so it's nice to get out and get a win. This is kind of one of my favorite tracks. For some reason, I just run better on concrete. So yeah, I'm really happy with this win.
Yeah, I would be as well. Before we start off though, you got the privilege of being the last man to do it. Is there any films from any sponsors you'd like to shout out before we go out?
I just want to invite everybody to go have a nice White Claw for a day. It's pretty hot out, and just all the guys in the league, good guys, everybody racing clean. You guys for broadcasting it.
Yeah, thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you up on that top spot next week as well.
Yep, thank you.
See ya. That was your leader, Tom Ogle. He won the race. It's 92nd win of the season. Before we sign off on behalf of Team Green Squad, we'd like to say thank you, of course, for letting us. And what was your reflecting on that race? What do you think, Jane or Jacob?
I think that's kind of what we expected to see in one way, that these races have typically tended to go with very few cautions. Like we saw tire saving be a very big key. Uh, Choosing a specific time to pit seemed to be very key, but also knowing what was the right amount to push to not to push. I thought Tom Ogle might have pushed a little too hard there, as he kind of mentioned, trying to catch back up to Weininger on that last stint, but it ended up working out for him. So seemed like fresh air is the resounding theme we heard across all the drivers. So keeping yourself in that position tended to prove to be the key to bring yourself home towards the front of the field. But a great race overall. And again, I'll echo the sentiments that we heard from your top three drivers. Respectful racing from the top to the bottom of the grid. We didn't have a single caution out there, and really, I didn't notice any car contact between anybody at any point in Finley. So
No.
certainly a great job by all the drivers out on the track today.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Before we sign off on behalf of the Goon Squad, once again, we'd like to thank you, of course, for watching the stream. Make sure to subscribe as well and put that notification bell on so you don't miss the next week's action around 18. And my name's Fiddy Fitzsimmons, joined by Jacob Huskinen, and we'll